Hi everyone, I'm Jugravi Singh, and this is Race to 2030. Today's episode is about Goal 7, which is affordable and clean energy. Affordable and reliable energy is important for health facilities. 1 in 4 hospitals in developing countries are not fully electrified. This can prevent our battle to curb the spread of this virus. Affordable and reliable energy is also key in reaching our goal of having a better future ahead in terms of environmental sustainability. To discuss this topic further, I'm joined by a fellow classmate named Mike Duan. I first got to know Mike back in 8th grade and saw how energetic or enthusiastic he was about learning or taking on some new activities. Throughout this year, I have seen him join clubs such as MUN, Student Council, Sustainability, music clubs, and more. I'm beyond excited to be speaking to him and glad that he accepted. He is a wonderful friend to have as he has helped me become a better leader and person as a whole. Okay, now let's get to the questions. Okay, so according to the globalgoals.org, renewable energy solutions are becoming much cheaper, more reliable, and more efficient every day. Implementing these new energy solutions as fast as possible is essential to counter climate change, which is one of the biggest threats to our own survival. Therefore, why do you think there are still some countries that deny having any renewable energy solutions?
Well, just to start, I want to give out a disclaimer that I am just a kid that is 15 years old and that is not and whom is not very knowledgeable and this is my point of view and my personal biased point of view, and I think that as a leader of a country, a president or a king, they have many other things to do and they would not know or do such research on renewable sources and such things. Therefore, generally, they would focus on the more the more related to laws and powers or the economics of the country rather than something that is definitely important, but still many others still deny the fact that it's real, which is such global warming and environmental impacts as such. But thank God we have the UN to act as a big organization that can spread the word. Yes. If I forgot anything, can you please re-ask?
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to ask a follow-up. Because we know that there are countries, like mostly the developed countries, that are investing in renewable energy solutions, but how can the developing countries have renewable energy solutions?
Well, yes, that's the problem. Since they are developing, of course, they won't have such conditions to invest in renewable energy. So, if you were to ask me how would they do it, I would think the probably ideal way is to get other countries to help in which of the investing of renewable sources and energies and getting people to spread awareness to somehow just even though like we are like spreading up like awareness a lot these days, still it's not really a big problem that hits the government or the leaders of countries right away and they just simply ignore it and people also simply ignore. So an ideal way is to spread awareness and get that idea and information in people's head and actually getting them concerned. And therefore, we can get people actually focusing on the environment rather than war or power or whatever religion, which is such a distraction to something as big and as real and as scientifically proven as this. So yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, now let me move on to my second question. There are many farms nowadays that are switching to biotechnology, and I can tell you that countries such as Rwanda, which is known as a developing country, is switching to biotechnology in their farms. And biotechnology are just like solar panels or wind energy. So this can speed up farming and eventually commercialize it, which will in turn benefit a country's economy or bring economic rise to a country. How do you think we should spread awareness of it so that more farms can adopt this method?
As kids or as adults or organizations or just a person in general, because a person
Well,
can't.
we, of course, I mean the young people nowadays. How can they or we spread more
Okay.
awareness that more farms can use this method of farming?
Well, awareness, it grows and it has a ripple effect to it. So of course we won't be able to directly spread awareness on this situation to people and to the farms, but we can obviously spread awareness in more on more general stuff that we can identify easier as young people, and therefore that can bring up more topics and more ideas to talk about as young people. And we can create clubs, we can create like such small conversations can still help people to think about it and then bring it up sometime in their life so that they could spread awareness. But of course, this won't. I can't really think of a way that can spread awareness right away and get the change to be done quickly. And if I were to spread awareness on how farms could do this, I think it would be to probably to give to get people to speak up and speak out loud and not be afraid of saying something wrong. Just encourage people to speak on the situation and give out information and talk about it with other people and just just as normal human beings gossip.
Yes, well, I do agree one point with you that change is definitely hard. It's not easy to come. It's not magic, but what I think of change is that it is something that happens over a period of time. So like even like the smallest bits, it could still happen. So
No,
basically it's
okay,
progress.
no, so not thinking about this, but like changes within something so big and something so impactful and so dramatic, like war or COVID, can get to so many people's mind. But then talking about the environment and how to help it, which is something way more scientifically proven and something way more real. But then still, we are like it's almost impossible to get people to actually think about it. Like, do you know why? Like, why is war and other dramatic things so much more easy to put into people's mind?
Oh, well, let me ask you the third question. And it's about
Okay.
something called fracking. I hope you know what that is.
I searched it up.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's something. It's also part of fossil fuels, and countries such as the U.S. are currently dependent on it to extract natural gas and oil for their infrastructures. Do you think that government should ban fracking?
Ban fracking just because. But is the positive impacts way is the negative impacts way bigger than the positive impacts that it outweighs the advantages to the point that it should be banned? Would
Well,
some facts on that?
fracking has its negative side and its positive side, and even the U.S., which is currently switching to like renewable resources, they still want to have fracking, and fracking is like a fossil fuel, so and it produces methane, which is a more harmful gas than carbon dioxide, CO2. So like even countries which are switching to renewable resources, they still want to keep fracking. So do you think that's a good idea to keep it, or should we convince governments to ban it?
But okay, then if fracking is as bad as you said, then but then there are like literally almost little to no other ways into getting such resources for the countries. So if we don't have another way to do this, then it should not be banned. If we don't have an alternative that is better or as equally good and efficient at getting these resources, then no, we shouldn't ban it at the moment. But when we can find another way, then of course we should ban it because it's bad.
Yeah, well, fracking has been happening in the US for many, many years now, and even many presidential leaders such as Obama and Biden, they are siding with the biotechnology side, but they still want to keep fracking. So I just find that really strange because fracking is more harmful and it can contaminate our waters because of the chemicals used inside fracking that goes into extracting natural gas or oil. However, it also has its economic benefits. It can,
Yeah, and that's why they still want to keep it.
yes, well,
Plus,
that's,
like you gotta understand that if they can't, if even though they're investing in biotechnology, but if they don't have the biotechnology to replace fracking, then of course they have to keep it going. So at the moment they have to keep it going, but then in the future when there's another way to do it, then I think they will ban it, and they should.
okay. Well, by 2030, the United Nations is hoping that most of its 193 members will agree to have renewable energy sources to combat the ongoing climate crisis. How do you think this will be possible? And how should we, the young people, contribute to make this goal possible?
Well, since the United Nations is doing a good job in and spreading awareness on many situations, of course, they will get most of its members to combat such ongoing climates. And the fact that they have MUN, which is such a fun event for kids to go to, in which
Yeah.
I and you and I have attended, and we
Yeah.
love it. It brings so many topics and ideas and things you wouldn't think about normally. But when you go to that event, you actually get to engage and have a serious session where you actually realize that it's not that easy. And you just have to try to find another way that is possible and feasible. And how should we, as young people, I think, as many of us young people are not very focused on such. I mean, we are definitely way more focused than people back then, but like to bring more attention, of course, we need people to encourage us to introduce the idea of climate changes and such environmental impacts to us before we can contribute, which I think should have organizations collab with schools to get to introduce these ideas to young people, and then after that as we have more and more young people engaged in contributing, we can probably have a club where we kind of try to do something to spread awareness, or we can invite your friends to join MUN so that you get the real experience of thinking and solving problems. And we can, of course, be more social on social media about the problems, about um, the problems, so that many people are more aware and so that people find our voice and hear our voice. And of course, that is related to question number 2 about spreading awareness and that it's a ripple effect. Yeah.
Well, I agree that we should be using our voice. However, you did mention to collab with organizations. So, just as a follow-up, can you tell me which organizations are the ones that the United Nations should collab with to make this goal achievable?
Oh, I suggested the United Nations to sponsor and collab with schools and get their PR people to reach out to schools to host events such as the MUN events or other organizations beside the UN that the UN could encourage to collab with other schools, such as the one that went to a school which was about wild rhino, which was about environmental crisis, and other organizations that could sponsor and collab with schools. I cannot really name any because I'm not that educated on the topic.
Don't underestimate yourself.
No, I actually don't know any. I mean, you could join clubs, and in the moment of the club, you can search for some organizations to collab with your club and your school, and that would be amazing. In which we try to do, in which we learned more about different organizations and how it was so diverse, even in a country that pollutes so much, like Vietnam.
I think every country has its ups and downs on environmental issues, but okay, well, on a personal level, as a member of the school sustainability club, what will you do so that the school can tackle this goal or make it possible or contribute so that it can be achievable? Or what ideas will you bring to the club which will make the school turn to renewable energy sources instead?
Well, as a member and of the Sustainability Club, I can tell that we're facing quite a problem with the amount of people who are joining the clubs, as we've lost a few recently, so that it would be very hard to actually do more things. But at the moment, we are trying our best to spread awareness on problems such as battery pollution and obviously plastic and paper, just like such waste pollution, and in which we have built some stations for you to um, put in your papers that is no longer in use, like one-sided paper and two-sided paper, so that we can do something with it. And we have also made a battery collection station so that we can so that the club can find a place to dispose of it correctly, or else it will release some toxins into the rivers. And about renewable energy sources, I personally believe that this would be easier if it was in the hands of the student body as a whole. So maybe student council, or maybe just a general student being very passionate, writing an email or proposal, or just like an email, trying to talk to the principal or the owner of the school to get into renewable energy source, and or make a speech in front of the whole school, because that would be very powerful to reach many people at a time rather than sending an email. So yes, I think it would be easier because the club at the moment, we're not very focused, not focused, but like we're not very organized yet. We're still in the midst of starting our engine, in which we're doing our best and small little things to help with environmental problems. But to say what is an ideal way, a good way to have everybody, have a lot of people hear and listen about this is to have a student write an email or make a speech in front of the whole school about the school turning to renewable energy sources.
Yeah, I agree with you on that note.
Yes. Which is perfect because you can do that and you're literally having a blog about that. So that's amazing, Jagrari Singh.
Yes, well, yeah, well, certainly. I mean, this is the 2 week break. Well, anyways, this year has certainly been hard for many countries with the virus, which just started a year ago, and now there's COVID 2.0. I think people are talking about these days, new mutations and variants. So, I mean, this COVID pandemic, I just want to ask one general question. This COVID pandemic has obviously, slowed the UN's ability to achieve these goals because there have been many lockdowns and economic impacts like job losses and school closures, which is really affecting everyone. so, I just want to ask, do you think it's still achievable for the UN to achieve all of their goals by 2030? Because it's due in like 9 years from now.
In my personal opinion, and from what I've heard from the vast internet, which can have a lot of misinformation, I personally think
Indeed.
At this rate, it can be very hard to save the Earth by 2030 or by any time soon, because like there are big changes that are happening that we've seen this year, such as Texas snowing, even though it's literally like one of the hottest states of the United States, and the south of Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, being very cold recently, almost similar to the north. The changes are real and it's happening quite fast. And with 7 billion or more, probably 8 billion people in the world, and with COVID slowing us down, it would be very hard to have any promises or have any hope that the Earth might even be alive till 2030. But of course, we gotta be positive and think that we can do this. So yes, I would personally say that it's very hard. But we can get there if something happens that really brings the attention to the problem. Yeah.
Yes, well, indeed, I agree. And I would just like to say that it's been wonderful speaking to you today on this very important topic.
Thank you. This was a very well made interview.
Yes, well, I hope there can be progress made, even though we are currently in lockdown and many countries are in lockdown. I hope at least virtually, if not physically, change can be made. Well, that's it for my 7th episode. I'll be back for episode 8, which is Decent Work and Economic Growth. I learned a lot from speaking to my friend Mike, and I hope you all did too. If you have anything else to add, please do so in the comment section down below. Also, if you all would like to contact me personally or get some of your questions answered directly on these goals, please message me on my Instagram called JagraviSingh2030. Thank you and see you all soon.